I think this is a very timely discussion. There's obviously with the increase in interest rates, it's having a huge impact on the cost of capital. Is technology streamlining? Is it reducing the costs? And really, what does it mean for mortgages, renters, and across the board in property markets? There's just a ton of innovation happening. So we're thrilled to have these speakers. I'm going to just introduce the moderator, and then she can take it away. The moderator is the COO of Matrix Mortgage Global. She's also a venture capitalist, innovator, and she's got a huge following on LinkedIn. So you definitely want to connect with Laura Scarlett Martin. And I'd just like to hand things over to you, Laura. You got your mute on, and then you can take it away. We've got Ben Salami. He's the founder and CEO of the Canadian Mortgage App. And remarkable, I saw online you had 800,000 users adopted your app or downloaded. It's fantastic. Love to hear more about that. Khushbu Jha, who's the founder and CEO of Buy Properly. And we have the founder and CEO of Deeded, Reuven Gorsht. So I'd like to maybe just start with you, Ben, in the order here, and I'll just fill in as the moderator until Laura gets her audio going. So did you maybe want to just do a brief introduction and let's continue forward here?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me here, guys. Really, really excited. And I think we're going to cover a lot of good topics today. So I want to introduce myself briefly. My name is Ben Salami. I'm the founder and CEO of a company called BenDigi Technologies. We focus mainly on mobile apps and specifically the mortgage industry. As you mentioned before, we have about 800,000 installs, and we serve mortgage professionals across Canada. About 40% of all licensed mortgage professionals have our app and they use it with their clients. And we also serve consumers, connecting them with mortgage brokers. The app is super awesome. If you get a chance, do download it. It's free. And that's really about me. And I'm going to really pass it over to the next guys here to introduce themselves.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Ben. And so I have handpicked everyone here today. My name is Laura Scarlett Martin. I'm moderating this session here. Ben, as well as Reuven and Khushbu, are all absolutely integral parts of the mortgage and real estate industry's tech environment. Without them, we would still be in the Stone Ages. So thank you, Ben, for bringing consumers and brokers alike the Canadian Mortgage App, which is absolutely in apps we love under the App Store and the top 5 home buyer apps. You've done a remarkable job in promoting and maintaining your app, Ben. So thank you for that. Next, I want to introduce Reuven, who is the co-founder and CEO of Deeded. He also co-founded MoveSnap before that in 2018. And he is reimagining the real estate closing process by removing the friction, frustration, and delays involved with closing a home mortgage and connecting basically the borrowers and home buyers with the lawyers. Do you want to say hello, Reuven?
Hey, everyone. Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Ben. Glad to be here, and should be a super exciting topic. Very excited to broach the topic of AI, and all the change that we've seen in the industry is only going to get accelerated. So super excited to be here and looking forward to the discussion this afternoon.
Excellent. Next up, we have Khushbu Jha, who is the founder and CEO of Buy Properly, an award-winning AI-powered platform for investing in alternative assets such as real estate. I absolutely love your product. Buy Properly is amazing. It really democratizes the ability to buy a home and invest in the asset class with as little as $500 through fractional ownership. Fractional ownership absolutely fits hand in hand with our topic today of regenerative finance. So Khushbu, she's won multiple awards as well. I'd like to now allow her to say hello to everyone before we get started.
Thank you, Laura. And thanks for the great intro. Excited to be here to discuss this topic. Very close to my heart and definitely keen to hear perspectives from the ecosystem.
Awesome. So actually, Khushbu, I'm going to stick with you for a minute. My first question is, as a real estate industry tech founder, how are you using artificial intelligence at Buy Properly?
Well, we are a small team, so we use AI a lot because that's what we are good at. at the core, our goal or vision is to democratize wealth building for regular people, not for the multimillionaires, but for regular tax-paying, salaried, simple people who obviously lack the effort and the knowledge and time to do intensive due diligence while investing, and also capital. So that's kind of our target segment. And in our effort to serve them better and allow them to access the wealth building opportunities, we use AI at every stage of our investment process. So we use AI for sourcing deals or in due diligence, because obviously that's a great place to start, and that allows us to not have to hire some very expensive resources to do due diligence. So our AI model will scan for deals, create pro formas, and figure out what's good for a certain investment time horizon. So that's one of our AI models. The second way we use it is through a process. So our process of investing is entirely online and all real time, which means we have to ensure that we are checking and making sure that the customers are eligible, there's no fraud, there's no scam, all of those things to protect our consumers as well as deals we are investing in. So the AI engine is constantly checking. Something I learned at Amazon, that is constantly being checking if you're doing something real time. So that's our other second piece. And the third one that we have, again, given my past history with Amazon, it's obvious that we would build a recommendation engine. So we have a recommendation engine.
Nice.
We are cautious there usually, but we could match investors to investments that best suit their interests in real estate specifically, based on their time horizon, the age they are in, their income and assets, and of course, objectives of risk and return. So those are the three ways we use AI.
That's amazing. Thanks for sharing. And yeah, I think that the marketing aspect is an obvious win for everyone that's got a company out there, whether it's a real estate, a mortgage company, or any kind of company. AI is absolutely beastly when it comes to marketing. What about you, Ben? How are you using AI at the Canadian Mortgage app and at Fintech?
Well, I'm going to start saying that we should be using a lot more AI than what we're doing today. So, I mean, generally speaking, we have tons of traffic on the Canadian Mortgage app, and a lot of consumers are asking questions. So one of our biggest challenges at the beginning was, how do we support them? So we implemented a support chat. But I think that's the easiest way that someone can get into AI, is to simply try to automate their support. So we have this support chat where when people ask questions, it tries to suggest the answers to them. And of course, you've probably seen it on various websites. It gives you a bunch of options, whether it is or not, and then you continue typing, and it tries to explore what you actually intended. Finally, if they don't find a solution, they speak to a live agent. So that's probably the easiest way. We also use AI internally. So during programming, we use something called an AI pair programmer. So basically, you plug it into your IDE, and as you're typing comments, etc., it will suggest workflows and code, actually source code that gets added to your screen that you can choose to have. So that has improved our development process a lot more than before. And then the other thing we have is lead distribution. So something a lot of people may not know, but the Canadian Mortgage app itself tries to connect home buyers to mortgage brokers, but we do it very similar to how Uber does. And when someone requests for mortgage, for instance, we use AI to figure out which mortgage broker we should connect this person to. So it goes through several data inputs of where the spoken languages of that specific broker, the location, the time of the day, whether they're working right now or not. And it tries to connect them to the perfect mortgage broker that can help that consumer. Lead distribution, pair programming, and support chat. But I really want to explore AI a lot more this year.
Excellent. And I think that'll be really important to keep your competitive edge for sure. And Ruben, what are you doing over at Deeded AI-wise?
So for us, Laura, as you mentioned, we're on the closing side. So closing is, if you've ever bought a house or applied for a mortgage. Closing is kind of the, I use the Amazon equivalent of the last mile. It's like the delivery where everything really needs to come together in order to get, your home buyers their keys in their hand, or your borrowers their funds in their hand, right? The nature of the process is actually super complex. There's multiple parties. All parties communicate differently through different mediums, through different portals. Believe it or not, in the mortgage industry and in lending in general, faxes are still very much alive and prevalent.
I believe it.
And so ultimately for us, we're, think of a closing as a project with multiple milestones, and they keep moving because you're marching to a date, and you're working backwards from that date to make sure that you've got all the information. All that information goes through proper due diligence. Everything gets vetted and essentially just put together into sets of documents and rules that then end up usually transacting in a fairly significant transaction, right? A real estate transaction, obviously, is for most consumers, it's the largest transaction they'll ever do in their lives. So, needless to say, accuracy and really a great scalable process is of the essence. So enter AI. I mean, for us, AI is almost like a necessity to be able to manage all of that in a very different way. Typically, what we've seen in our industry and the opportunity we saw that caused us to start DEEDed is that technology hasn't evolved. As I mentioned, faxes, different methods of communication.
Yeah, the legal field specifically, like I can't tell you the amount of times I've walked into a lawyer's office and it's just boxes floor to ceiling. They're so tactile. It's crazy.
Yeah, and there hasn't been, there really hasn't been the technology to manage it all. So this becomes one of the perfect applications for AI to really manage all the various moving pieces, because there's a lot of variables. And, if a certain thing happens, or if a document comes in and it's not according to plan, different variables need to change, and they all need to be managed accordingly in order to adjust things on the fly and really make it seamless, not only for the consumer, but everybody else that's involved in the transaction.
It sounds kind of like it's doing some project management in a way.
It is, but far more complex, because you got different stakeholders, you've got certain levels of automation, and so on. The other aspect where we're having a lot of success is there's a lot of tribal knowledge that's involved. So, in our team collectively, I think the number is about like 250, 300 years of collective know-how and experience, seeing different situations arise, right? And we always say, no two transactions are alike. Everyone's going through a different situation. Here in the Canadian ecosystem, we've probably seen more change in regulations in real estate in the last 12 months than we've probably seen in the last decade, with different tax programs, foreign buyer bans, different incentives and rebates. So every situation is going to have that unique ability to have things either apply or don't apply, and quite frankly, a lot of that is now becoming so complex that AI becomes the perfect way to manage all that knowledge and really give us a good edge over being able to be very thorough with the process. Machines generally are very good at being very binary, not missing something, whereas humans will typically be prone to making a mistake, which again, could be catastrophic in our line of business.
Yeah, I mean, the thing I'm most excited for in terms of the genesis of AI being used more regularly in our industries is that the really dry type of admin work that brokers or agents have to do is absolutely better done by an artificial intelligence machine. And that leaves us freer to do what we really do best. Because I don't think that anyone could look at me with a straight face and tell me they enjoy going through a bank statement line by line. Like, come on now. So, go and do something that you're better at doing, go innovate, go problem solve with those more complex problems they don't know yet. So I'm going to launch into a case study and sort of pose a question to all of you. So I read in the Harvard Business Review that JP Morgan Chase introduced an AI system for reviewing commercial loan applications. And work that used to take 360,000 human hours can now be done in a few seconds. The question is, if you're not JP Morgan Chase, or if you're a late adopter to AI, could you ever catch up? Ben, you first.
Could you catch up? I think, could you catch up with ChatGPT right now? Probably not.
Probably
So,
not.
yes, it's true. If you're late, there's a good saying that's, the early bird gets the worm, but you also have to consider that the second mouse gets the cheese. So, yes, AI is early, but that doesn't mean you have to jump on it and build foundations that will break in a couple months.
Mhm.
So the other thing to really focus on is how far will the politics of this go? For example, if we look at specifically document collection and document analysis, bank statements, the one that you mentioned, it really depends on how much open banking there is, whether API is actually allowed to do it, whether the government, whether CRA will actually allow you to pull those data and process it. So it's not so much we're only limited by building AI, but also you have to look at the other side. Can we all the foundation that's already been built, how fast will they adapt? So we're taking our time.
Yeah.
Yes, we're looking at it more seriously, but we're not jumping the gun and building something that's may break in a few months.
That's fair. And I think there's something to be learned for each organization that's looking at their own strategies. But I think it's important for an organization to have an AI strategy, 100%, whether you implemented it today or not, or if you white label someone else's or make your own, that's something else. But I think it's something important for executives to ponder. What about you, Khushbu? Do you believe that it's better to be an early adopter of AI, or do you think, it might not be the end of the world if you're a mid to late adopter?
Well, I would say you need to be an early adopter of the idea and watch out for the trends and how it's shaping. But whether or not you actually adopt it depends on your specific context. Because at the end of the day, every firm is solving for a customer problem. Every business is solving for a customer problem. And the rest of the tech are tools. So today it's AI. Sometimes it will be ChatGPT. There's blockchain. There was AWS before that. Depends on your context or when you use what tech. So Salesforce is a great analogy I'll use, is a great tech for sales and marketing. Is it good for everybody to use Salesforce? My organization cannot afford to use Salesforce, but it's amazing for a lot of organizations. But does that mean that we are aware that there are tech systems, the CRM systems that can actually do good when we are at the right size and the right scale and have the right resources? Yes, like sometimes you need a butter knife, sometimes you need a Swiss knife, and sometimes you need a machine gun. You need to be aware that they all exist and then decide whether you want to use the machine gun for slicing your cheese or butter, or is it just a butter knife that will do?
Right.
And the lots of things in your context that will determine. But the important thing for the industry is to, one, not be afraid of anything new. It's good to be trend. We are in an information age, which means things change really, really quickly. Which means if you're not reading and updating yourself, you are outdated already. And so for people in the industry need to be aware what new tools are coming, how they will get used, how they are evolving, what it could mean. So if generational AI is something that people are talking about, language models are not new. I've worked in the Alexa team in the past, and that's not new. It just suddenly people started noticing, oh, it can do things for me. It generates subject lines for emails for us. My team isn't the most creative, nor am I. So we use it for our emails. But knowing what is the possibility, knowing what are the things happening, opens up new ideas, can seed new ideas, even if it's not directly applicable to you today. The important thing is to know and think and learn about it and then adopt it at the right time.
I think that's a good point. Certainly, for sure.
Even
And-
as a strong believer of AI, I feel not everybody needs to jump in. You have to choose.
It's true. Reuven, where do you stand on this?
I agree. I mean, great points by Ben and Khushbu. I mean, at the end of the day, and we saw this, we saw this with blockchain as well. I don't think there's been a week where, I didn't have a conversation to say, look, blockchain is just perfect for what you do. And again, it is. There's no doubt that sometimes technology is perfect, but we're not there yet, right? So sometimes it's going to require a generational change. In our case, I mentioned earlier, we're in a generation that's still on fax. We don't go fax to blockchain, right? There's got to be a middle step in there where we start rationalizing and adopting stuff. Same for AI, although my sense is that just the speed in which we've seen, for example, a ChatGPT get, to 100 million users over 2 months, unprecedented, right?
That's pretty crazy.
There's a lot there, not only for our businesses, but there's a lot there for individuals. I would always consider AI or some of these large language models is almost like it's almost like an advanced personal assistant, or I call it a second brain. And who can't use a second brain these days when you're just overwhelmed by information and you want to make yourself more productive and you want to make your company more productive. So similar to what my fellow panelists were saying, you owe it to yourself to take a look, to kick the tires a little bit. Might not work for you. It might not be the right time. You might not have the right mindset or the right resource to take advantage. But at the very least, have a plan, understand what it could do, because this technology does come in waves. Some stuff is going to stick. Some stuff is going to be too early. And, we might be laughing about it 5 years from now. But the stuff that does stick allow us to gain an unfair competitive advantage, or sometimes it's a matter of survival. If I'm looking at like what ChatGPT is doing to, content writing and
Right.
that sort of stuff, there's a real disruption there. If I'm making a living writing blogs, I'm a little bit concerned, right?
Yeah.
That
Big time.
my gig's up, but at the same time, if I can be the one adopting it and I can be 10 times more productive and serve 100 times more customers, that's different, right? So you just owe it to yourself. Take a look, kick the tires, try it out. Not going to work. If it's not going to work, it's not going to work. But at the very least, be aware, and you don't want to be the one left behind.
I love that you use that analogy with ChatGPT and bloggers, because for me, I just saw doom and gloom for the bloggers. I didn't quite see the silver lining until you mentioned that it's true, they could be far more productive. Although I can see a lot of people would just say, I can do this myself, and that's that. I think that there's something to be explored in there, right? Because for a mortgage or loan officer, it's kind of looking like AI could start doing most of their jobs. And, for instance, with Khushbu's Buy Properly, you have AI sourcing and vetting these deals, doing the due diligence. People will get paid a lot of money to do that. So I'm wondering what opportunities there are for people within the industry to leverage AI for themselves, and so as not to be outdated. If anyone wants to jump in with ideas, they may.
You called me out, so I can tell you how. So yes, we have a lot of proprietary models that matches people to deals, helps source deals. A lot of it was necessitated because we have limited resources and limited team members. We needed it ourselves. But then these tools were designed to make the overall value chain more efficient.
Mm-hmm.
And so it would be incorrect to think that it's supposed to replace a certain job description.
Mm-hmm.
It's solving a customer problem. So we create a tool. Now somebody can use that tool to solve that problem better than before.
Mm-hmm.
For example, our recommendation engine, which is all in-house, looks at customers and then matches them to the deals. Can a real estate broker actually look at that engine and leverage to serve their customers better? Totally. Like our tool has a mechanism to take inputs where somebody can put in subjective stuff, which has nothing to do with the data, but then leverage the tool to actually boil the ocean and look at way more opportunities than one person can.
Mhm.
So that's the way you extend your capability to service the same customer. So
Mhm.
does it redefine the exact process that you follow as a broker today? Potentially. Does it redefine the value that you bring to the customer? Yes, you increase the value with the help of the tool. So maybe it redefines some of those roles, and it's not necessarily in competition, but there's so many mechanisms of leveraging some of this tech, as Ruben was saying, that you can serve the same customers better. And what AI allows you to do is, because it can churn massive amounts of data, it allows you to serve a lot more customers in a more custom manner.
Mhm.
You individually cannot serve thousands of people in thousands of ways. You will
No way.
standardize, templatize, and reduce it. But with the help of tools like this, you can actually give everybody a one-on-one service.
Yeah.
At a speed.
I couldn't agree more. Just I think to add to what Khushbu was just saying is really people are generally afraid when these things come out in big waves. We're going to be replaced. We're going to be talking to the machine. Reality is we're not, right? If you're good, for example, if you're good at building relationships, you look at, for example, travel, and travel's been commoditized through the Expedias and kayaks for decades, right? Are there still not great travel agents that make a great income and are super important? There absolutely are, right? But if your job was to, simply click a couple buttons and do a booking and not interact with your customer, not explain their destination, not give them advice, perhaps you're not in the travel industry anymore. Perhaps you're not a travel agent, right? And it's no different than any other industry. If you're real estate, if you're mortgages, if you're a lender, the real value, as we all know, is in that relationship, the interaction, understanding your needs and the advice. Still very, very, very difficult for a machine, A, to do that.
Yeah.
And B, there's always going to be that human trust element. Like I know when I get on a website and I get a chat bot, first word I type is human, 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 human,
Same.
until I get the
Same.
right?
Yeah.
Because that's what I want, and that's the interaction that I still crave. Maybe I'm of that generation. Perhaps it will change over time. But I think Khushbu just really crystallized it. It's a tool. It'll help you scale. You owe it to yourself to understand what the impact is. But that relationship, like this conversation that we're having now, is not, it doesn't look like 5 bots or 4 bots in the future having this conversation and sharing insights. Hopefully not.
Yeah. And I feel like AI developers need curious business owners to provide their data and to get the machine learning to be more accurate and to learn better so it can learn to learn, really. So I think that there's a lot of collaborative opportunities between broker owners, brokerage houses, and with developers like yourselves, where, if there's these metadata and these data lakes, and that they can contribute to that. So it's not necessarily, exposing their clients' personal information, but it's really looking at things en masse and looking for trends that could really make us go leaps and bounds in terms of things like fraud detection, for instance, which helps everyone. So I hope that there's some people out there listening and thinking that, hey, maybe it's a good idea to start talking to someone about getting my data sort of wrangled. And even if I'd say the first thing that someone would do, the first step is to look at what kind of data do I have and how could this be used to train a machine learning application to do what I do, but better and faster. I think that would be a good choice. Ben, do you have any opinions on this?
I couldn't really agree more with some of the points. So that personalized customer experience, that's something mortgage brokers and real estate agents can use today. Mm-hmm. So they can serve a lot more clients in real time, very personalized. Mortgage brokers, for example, can use document analysis and fraud detection tools to be able to pick up the bad apples, but that human element is so important. First of all, when someone buys a house, they don't buy a house every 6 months. It's a transaction that happens every 4 years, every 5 years, sometimes 10 years. So people are not used to it the way you would buy a car. You're making the biggest investment of your life. Would you rather speak to a person, or would you want to chat GPT the whole thing? So if it's free to you, why not use a person? And that's really what mortgage brokers offer. They offer that human trust and that specific human relationship without even charging the end consumer.
Brilliant. And I'm wondering if anyone can think of some negative impacts that AI might have on consumers or stakeholders. I mean, just to have a balanced sort of questioning.
Well, I think, I mean, the early days, like we all know, and I think if you've experimented with, Chat GPT or different variations, you know that there's a high degree of inaccuracy. If you actually understand a topic, it could be a little bit misleading. So I'm hoping, people take it with a grain of salt or use it to at least validate some of the advice that's given, because essentially, today, from my understanding, it's stringing together sentences from different data sources, and not all data sources are properly vetted and so on. So there's always a bit of caution to the wind. I know people are implementing their own bots and their own sets of data and things like that. And then there's always the aspect coming back again to let's not lose that human element out of interactions, because that's what makes a lot of our industries very special. That, hey, if I have an issue, for example, with the Canadian mortgage app, I can pick up the phone and call Ben and call his team, and they can understand my concern and resolve it. Or if I'm looking to invest in fractional real estate, I can call Kushbu or her team. And that interaction, that advice is just priceless, right? So it's important not to start abstracting the human layer and removing it out of our day-to-day interactions, because I think it might have some adverse effects for all of us down the road.
And I'd like to add to that one big problem with AI, and people forget that AI models and the machine learning models have a lot of human input that go into training them, which people tend to forget. Like even our models have been vetted with outcomes that have been provided by brokers and underwriters and AVM people. So it has a lot of human input that has gone in, which means there's a problem. All the biases that the people providing the inputs had is now part of the AI. And that's a huge problem. It may directly not translate into house prices, but a lot of subtle advice, recommendations that come in get biased by the people training them, biased by the data that was already biased because people producing that data were biased in the first place.
Yep.
And that's a huge problem and a very difficult problem to combat, but something people using AI models need to be aware of, because then that just kind of extrapolates all the biases that already existed in the past.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because I was thinking, like, there's one instance where I believe that automatic valuation of homes, or AVMs, using AI could mitigate against what is known as racist appraisal policies, where, you have the appraiser going into a house, you have a Black family, you replace that with a white family, suddenly appraised value goes up by a no short magnitude. And but if it was coded such that a certain type of last name has a house that's a lower value, it could still even transcend through the code. It's not necessarily that it would get rid of it entirely. So yeah, it's definitely something tricky to look out for there. I'm also excited for things that AI will help in terms of properties themselves, like HVAC and managing the energy resources. This really ties into like the ESG compliance initiatives. I think that it'll be amazing just for reducing waste in terms of like our hydro and our electricity and things like that. And really, I think helping people buy the right type of place and reducing all these barriers, like needing to pay all these agent fees or needing to go from place to place and having these pictures there. Is there anything in particular you're excited for in terms of AI, what AI will be able to do, which isn't able to do yet? Like if you're looking 10 years into the future.
I am actually super excited. I mean, I'm not even sure this is going to be a reality, but to connect to, let's just say, for better words, ChatGPT or Google, just outside of the computer setting, be able to connect to it directly from my head. I mean, that's what I would be super excited about, to be able to access information just by thought.
Yeah, if there was like a microchip, sign me up. Yeah, I'm into it.
There's one. I mean, there's one guy building it, but we'll see how that goes.
I love that, Ben. What about you, Ruben? Any futuristic ideas about AI?
I ultimately, I mean, where lands for me is to, really, push humans to new capabilities, right? I mean, I think we've gone through different iterations. Like, I mean, when I grew up, you want to know something, you go to the library. Maybe I'm dating myself now, but now, the internet has sort of democratized access to information for myself and all future generations. This is the next level, right? This is now not just research, it's putting together productivity and thought and communication. And maybe, I think what Ben was saying, it probably isn't too far-fetched, but to give you that potential, because we're all limited by, our IQ, our EQ, what we're given when we're born and as we develop. I think there's certain limitations around that. Imagine a world where you have a lot more of that and you can expand that and scale it across multiple people. It can be dangerous, but it's also very exciting as well.
That's awesome. Khushbu, any final thoughts on the future of AI?
I won't go too far out, maybe like 5 years, 10 years. And there might be another tech that we will be talking about in 5 to 10 years, and it wouldn't even be called AI. Who knows, right? That's the most important thing. But it's talking about technology in general, which has a little more learning ability, just generically, whether you chat GPT, AI, whatever you call it. I am hoping that technology moves humans more towards overall wellness. As they say in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, more towards the top of the pyramid, and is able to do that. And I do hope that we are able to leverage more tech that pushes more towards more wellness versus the other way around. Hopefully, with all of the access and distribution, that's something that AI will take up as its goal.
That's amazing. Yeah, I think for anyone that doesn't know, Maslow's hierarchy of needs has like our basic food, shelter, safety, relationships, jobs, some esteem. And at the very top, there's self-actualization. And at the mode of self-actualization, that's when you're giving back to others and you have meaning that you're chasing in your life and you're fulfilled in your relationships and your life. And you don't basically want to blow your brains out because you have to go to work every day. So I believe that AI can help us do that by taking away all these mundane tasks that we never really enjoy doing anyway, and that it can do better regardless. So I think that basically is it. We've got another couple minutes to babble if we feel like it, but I think this has been an incredible panel discussion on the future of AI in real estate. And I must take this time to thank all of you so very much for sharing your insights with us today.